All right, we'll get started. So good morning. Thank you for joining us here in our third class in the series of getting ready for summer. And so it's managing interconnections, and very glad you're here. I'm Heidi Carter. I'm one of the lead customer education trainers here in the customer readiness team. And with me is Rada Madrigal. She's our producer. She's our other lead customer education trainer. And our efforts as we continue to go forward through this series and as we continue in our paths in the customer readiness team is to really create sustainable training that's repeatable, reusable, because we have so many new people coming into the industry. And, all of us are feeling it, no matter if you're operating new batteries, completely new technologies, or you've been in the industry for years with more traditional, maybe you've been in operations, markets, et cetera. We're all feeling the newness of so many new people coming into the industry, and just a churn of knowledge that needs to be shared. So that's what we're doing here through this series, and we're also going to continue that in our training tracks that we're really creating as kind of a result of this training that we're doing here, and as we're looking to improve all of our training resources so that they're readily available for a wide audience. So we thank you for being here today. Why are we here? To prepare our resource owner operators to effectively manage their resources and maintain market efficiency and grid reliability. Our real focus for this whole series has been the resource owners and operators, kind of a group that we haven't been working with as much, but because of the diversity of technology, because of the, like I just mentioned, all the new folks that are coming into this industry, we're trying to really level set and really look at, how do we make sure that the people that are actually running these resources that are affecting the grid, that they get the awareness that they need. So we're very glad you're here. If you're a resource owner, operator, but, a scheduling coordinator, we want to make sure that you're all there. There are so many other different directions that we can go and will go, but right now this is kind of our main focus. Because it really is a partnership between all the different roles to make sure that we have a safe and reliable grid. So what am I going to be learning through this particular session? Kind of what are the basics of interchange? This is going to be a very foundational class for most of this session. What are some basic e-tagging requirements? How do we treat interchange priorities and wheel-throughs? So we'll get a kind of a case study of last year when we kind of had stress conditions that has led to maybe some of the, what's coming up for interchange and e-tagging. We have a couple of different initiatives that, many of you that are on the call that are more involved in the policy side, or that have been, gone through some of the training of some of the new initiatives that are coming through that do have an impact here. You maybe have been watching, so we'll have an opportunity to kind of say, where are we at that point through a discussion. And then also what kind of notifications inform the interconnection of system events. So just a kind of a touch up on the energy alerts, energy and emergency alerts system that we have, and just a reminder to sign up for that. During this course, we've got our housekeeping that we talk about each time. So please keep yourself muted until you want to speak up. That helps us minimize any kind of noise, any kind of echoing. We do encourage, questions through the chat or verbally. If you want to speak up verbally, tap next to your name and raise your hand. And at the appropriate time, we're going to call on you. And so that's where, or else, like I said, you can put in the chat and periodically we'll be looking at that and do our best to answer those questions. Like I said, Radha Madrigal, she's our producer for today. She's working closely with our subject matter experts that we have, so thank you to our subject matter experts who you will periodically be hearing from throughout the day. So they're working on the back end, and she's coordinating that so that as you are asking questions, she'll keep an eye on that, maybe look for answers here and there. Anything that we can't answer during this class, we will be taking back and respond. So what's next? This training, just like the others, is being recorded and will be posted along with the presentation on the ISO Learning Center within 3 business days. I think we should have the class from yesterday for battery resources. That should be posted a little later today. That's already been sent to our web posting. So you can check that one out. The class from last week about resource performance is already up there on the Learning Center. So you'll be able to find this one as well. Like I mentioned, questions that are gathered through here, we will be capturing all of that, and it's going to be turned into a comprehensive Q&A guide that will be posted on our Learning Center. That will happen after the conclusion of all these classes. And we plan to publish that in the mid-June timeframe. In addition, we've got the Interchange and e-tagging computer-based training course. There is one online on our Learning Center right now, but it's going through substantial changes right now. So stay tuned. That should be released in the next couple of weeks. So when that is released, notification will be sent out letting you know that this has changed, and you can go a little deeper into the basics of interchange and e-tagging. So that is in the works right now. Like I said, this is the 3rd training in the series focused on efforts to create a resource owner operator training track. If you look at our Learning Center, you see that there are training tracks for market operations, for settlements, and for WEAM and for scheduling coordinators. This is going to be a new one that we're creating, kind of piloting this. And then as we move forward and as we start to gather more questions from all of you, more tasks on how to perform some of these, we identify the tasks and identify, how you would go about that. We will continue to evolve our training and all of our training tracks likewise. Again, they can be more interactive, more hands-on, more useful to you if you're a trainer, that you can take this information and build it into your training plans. If you're new, you're onboarding, some great basic resources, or if you just need refresher training, this will be there. So we're making it more self-paced. All right, so let's get into some basics and foundational information about interchange, scheduling, and e-tagging. So what is this at a high level? We've got our markets that are running. You've talked about the, how, bids, base schedules are put in, the market optimizes, and then awards are produced. Now, in order to flow that energy, we need the e-tags to let us know where that energy is going to flow. So interchange scheduling, that's the plan of how to transfer this energy that is awarded, the physical energy or capacity, between the balancing authority areas, and that would be through the interconnection points. The e-tag is the way that it's submitted to track every intertie of every place that the energy is going through. So if it's going through multiple balancing authority areas, multiple interconnections, each one of those places needs to be tracked. And that needs to be tracked for reliability purposes, but also for settlements reasons. So e-tags, they track every intertie the energy goes through, contains specific information about the SC, the type of energy, the contract information, et cetera. It contains that data that allows us to model where that energy is being produced, where it's consumed, and which one of the transmission lines are being utilized. So we need to, one of the important things that we need to be doing is we need to be able to match the tags with the area, also with the market awards. So in each one of the e-tags, we actually need to make sure that we have specific information. We'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. Now there's e-tags and there are expectations for both the day ahead and real time. So for day ahead, the e-tags are used, they're submitted to schedule physical energy and capacity. And these are used for the energy service or ancillary service bids, energy schedules, and energy self-schedules. And so for, just as a reminder for some of you that are maybe like, what's the difference between that self-schedule and bid? Bids are bids that are put in with financial, megawatt and a dollar amount. Self-schedules are megawatt only. So regardless of how you bid that in, that information, the e-tags are used for that. E-tags in day ahead are optional, but if they are put in the day ahead, they need to be submitted by 1500, because we do have auto adjustments that happen by 1530 on the day prior to the actual flow of energy. I've got something here that's kind of in my way. Hold on. So auto adjustments of the e-tags, those occur at about 1530 in Pacific time on the day prior to the start of the transaction, or a minimum of 60 minutes after the day ahead market publishes. So these adjustments are in the down direction only. So the e-tag is only going to be adjusted down if the megawatt value of the energy profile exceeds the day ahead RUC award. And that's something that is important to note. So there will be in the market processes, if you study those, in the day ahead, we've got the three processes. There's market power mitigation, the IFM, the integrated forward market, where the market is clearing, and then there's the RUC process. We're kind of bridging that gap between, we've stripped out the virtual bids. We're looking at what actually showed up, what is intended to, what physical energy and capacity cleared that market, and then we look for any kind of energy to be able to fill that gap. So when you're looking at what the tagging is, you want to tag according to the day ahead RUC award, that value. So let's say you were awarded 100 megawatts in the IFM, but then after RUC cleared, it actually went down to 70 megawatts. That's what you're going to want to tag on. So in the real time, we've got the tags are created for the FMM, so the 15-minute market economic bids. There are economic hourly bids with an inter-hour option, and the transmission profile needs to be updated by T-40, so 40 minutes before the start of the next hour, in order to be used in the first 15-minute market dispatch for the first 15-minute market interval. WEIM transactions are energy transfer system resources, so the ETSRs, not individual tags. So, when we talk about the 40 minutes, that's when the transmission profile is updated by then. For the hold on just a second. For hourly block bid market awards, e-tags need to be submitted with a transmission profile that's either equal to or greater than the HASP, the hour-ahead scheduling process advisory result, by T40, and an energy profile equal to the HASP advisory result by the T-20. For the 15-minute market awards, submit an e-tag with a transmission profile that's equal to or greater than the HASP advisory results by T-40, and an energy profile equal to the FMM binding result by 20 minutes before each binding interval. And in any of these cases, accuracy is the key, so you always want to make sure that you are, and it is the responsibility of the SC to be putting that information in there, making sure that it's clear. So always check your award ID. against your E-tag ID in CMRI before submitting your E-tag to make sure that there are no mistakes, because you don't want to have it canceled if there's some kind of an error. So E-tags must adhere to specific rules. So there's, and a lot of this information, I think I see a note in here, where are we going to publish this presentation? Yes, I will be posting this presentation on our Learning Center. So it will be up there within the next 3 business days, probably sooner, but we like to give 3 business days for just in case. All right, so here's an example of a tag, the information that's needed. Yours might look different because a lot of people use third-party software for their user interfaces, but the information is general. It needs to be, make sure that you have this information in there. So this first section for number 1, that is tag information. So, that's all the specifics about the resources, where that energy is being shared, the delivery, et cetera. So that has your basic tag information that's in there. In the second part is the market path. So that is the purchasing selling entity, the PSE, that took ownership of it, of the ID, needs to enter that information in there as far as where the energy is sinking and the source. That information needs to be put in that section. In the section 3, that's where the physical path is. So where is the energy coming from? Where is it shared? All of that information, what transmission lines, that information needs to be in there for what the flow of energy is going to be. For number 4, the miscellaneous information, that is the contract information, priority type, et cetera. So there's information that needs to be put in there regarding that kind of information. For number 5, you've got the transmission allocation. So that's where the market ID goes in. It confirms the E-tag has a valid market award because, as mentioned before, that you have to have that market award. Then the E-tag has to match up with that, because it's all about making sure that we're sure of where that energy is going to flow, where we can count on it, what that path is going to look like for the next day, or for the market interval, in real time. For number 6, that's the current energy. And so that's the energy schedule and the transmission that is reserved. So that's what you would find in there. So your generation, transmission information would be in that section. Now, all E-tags should contain a single resource of information. And it should have either transaction ID or resource ID. Failure to comply with any of the information that's in here, any kind of inaccurate information, that may result in losing a bidding award for an entire hour. So that's why it's really critical to double check and make sure that you have that information. Like I mentioned, all E-tags should contain a single resource of transaction ID or resource ID, and that should be at the associated scheduling point with the ISO market awards. So here you see an example of a transaction ID. When the interchange CBT is available, you'll be able to go back and look at this, break down a little bit more of the pieces. but as you can see that each one needs to have a scheduling coordinator ID, an interchange scheduling point, and ISO transmission path, the direction that the energy is flowing, is it an import, is it an export, bid type, is it, what's the energy type, and then also the PSC or purchasing seller selling entity identifier. So for each one of the transaction IDs, there are 5 elements. This is an example. This is not a specific resource, but this ID must be provided in the OASIS field of the transmission allocation section of the ETAG. And like it says here, any incorrect information is going to result in an ETAG adjustment to 0 or loss of a binding award. And that would happen before the ETAG is scheduled to flow with no exceptions. So that's a transaction ID, but then there's also the resource ID. So if it's a resource ID that is being used, you've got the scheduling coordinator ID, ISO transmission path. Again, you've got the direction or energy type and a resource ID identifier. So this must also be provided in the miscellaneous info fields of the physical path section of the ETAG. So again, if any information is incorrect, before the ETAG is scheduled to flow, that could also result in an adjustment down to 0. So what is the timing for tagging? Submit the ETAGs on time in compliance with NERC timetables and policies. And part of those are also the NASB. So, tags can be put in up to 20 minutes, but we want them in within 40 minutes so that you can make sure that you're hitting that first FMM award or dispatch in the real time. Number 2, submit pre-schedule ETAGs on the day prior to the start of the transaction after the day-ahead market publishes to ensure that you have the correct ISO priority type. And again, you want to, for number 3, you want to make sure that you're looking against your RUC awards. That's when the auto adjustments of the ETAGs occur. We mentioned before the day-ahead residual unit commitment adjustments. Those are made on both the import and the export transactions. And as mentioned before, adjustments are in the down direction only. The tag will only be adjusted down if the megawatt value exceeds the day-ahead award. Number 4, after the HASP results are published, you'll submit the intertype transmission profile for the 15-minute market economic bid by 40 minutes prior to the start of the first FMM interval of the hour. So that's when we say T-minus 40, that's what that time frame means. And you'll submit the energy profile by 20 minutes before each binding interval. After those HASP results are published, you'll submit the intertie hourly transmission profile by 40 minutes prior to the start of the first interval of the next hour's market, and the energy profile by 20 minutes prior to for the following export bid types. So as you see there, we've got the self-scheduled hourly block, self-scheduled variable energy resource bid, the economic hourly bid block, and block bid, and the economic hourly block single change bid. Any adjustments of ETAGs that occur 20 minutes each hour after the HASP results have been published. Adjustments are in the down direction, as mentioned before. So this is when we're getting into the real time. The tag will only be adjusted down if the megawatt value at the energy profile exceeds the HASP energy award. So the key points in e-tagging are that all interchange market awards, they are required, they require an e-tag in order for the energy to flow, and also it ties into our settlements. So we do need that to track it so that we can go back and make sure that everyone is also getting paid accordingly, especially if the energy is flowing through one balancing authority to the area, wheeling through. We need to be able to track that energy so that we have accurate settlements. not to mention just the proper e-tagging for the reliability of the grid to try and avoid congestion, make sure that the transmission lines have enough capacity for to transfer that energy. All e-tags should contain a resource ID or a transaction ID, and that's at the scheduling points with the market award. So again, a market award has to be associated. And so you're going to want to make sure that when you are putting in your tag that market award matches with the ID. Follow the timing. So we just went through the timing. That's important to follow, and I know that there are some issues and changes that are happening, especially based on priorities. We'll have a moment to talk about that in just a little bit. Understanding what the timing is important for making sure that that you are able to flow that energy. And always check your market ID against your e-tag ID in CMRI before submitting to prevent those mistakes. So again, make sure that the information in there is all accurate so that it will be evaluated at capacity, you can flow that energy. So we have a question in here, and I've got my subject matter experts on the line, so just kind of preparing you. So and Radha, thank you very much. You've been putting in the links to our Learning Center where you'll be able to find these slides and information, as well as the link to the BPM for Market Operations sections 6.3.2 and section 8. Those are the ones that you want to look at for interchange transaction, e-tagging, specific information, as well as tagging. So what happens if you have a day ahead award but tag after the 1500 deadline? So do I have a subject matter expert that wants to answer? I'm just kind of looking down my list here. And so I'm going to move a little further, and then we're going to see if we can get answers to some of these questions. So if you tag after the 1500 deadline, or if a day-ahead rec award adjustment occurs, does an additional tag need to be submitted if replacing a real-time bid? Well, I'll take a look at those answers, and we'll work to get those for you. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Heidi, this is Heather Curley. Do we have a specification from the questioners about whether they are asking about imports or exports or low priority or high priority? I think the answer will vary, and I didn't see that in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Heather. So I think it's Shabu. I might be saying that wrong. Sorry. If you wanted to add more specificity, maybe speak up. You asked the question, what happens if you have a day-ahead award but tag after the 1500 deadline?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can jump in here. Yeah. So yeah, Shabular from the Energy Authority. Mainly I'm referring to low priority exports and imports. Kind of trying to understand if we are to tag after the 1500 deadline, do we still get that day ahead award price, or would that then fall under a real-time award timeline, and then we would have to bid a real-time bid in instead?
It's the latter. If you're adjusted down on your day ahead tag and you wish to resubmit real time, you will need to make sure the priority on the tag matches your market position. But I say resubmit, but there's obviously, you know, if you already had a tag out there, you know, that could be different.
Yeah.
If
Sorry for
we,
the confusion. I was actually referring to when we do have a day ahead award and we're not adjusted down. It's just we don't have it tag out. So there is no tag out by the 1500 deadline. And suppose the tag for whatever reason comes out at say 1700, right? Day before. It's after that kind of validation timeline. Do we still get tagged as, does that tag still get seen as a day ahead award tag? Or is there an issue with tagging after the 1500 deadline?
your tag should be, will if you could put your question in a follow-up so we can get you the exact answer. I don't
Sure.
want to give you the wrong answer. I know it at a high level, so I'm going to say Kaiso, other SMEs on this call should speak up. But I believe the answer to your question is that you can still submit the tag, but when you are selecting the priority type, you do need to make sure that your priority type you're selecting matches the market award you have. But there is no requirement to tag before the market runs. And Danny, it looks like you may have more to add.
Yeah, that's right, Heather. We would expect that a tag submitted at 1700 would respect the award from RUC and would only be tagged at that amount. That would have the day ahead priority, and any incremental rebid into the real-time market would have a separate tag with a real-time priority.
Great, thank you, Daniel. I can rewrite the question to give more detail in the chat just for clarity.
Okay, that would be great. I hopefully we provided folks what they needed here on the key points slide. But again, the details do matter, and I don't want anyone to walk away with a wrong impression on those.
Well, did we answer the question, just to be clear?
Yeah,
I believe we did.
That answered the question from my perspective. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you both. And just to kind of follow up, Stephen asked if a day ahead rec adjustment occurs, does an additional tag need to be submitted if placing a real-time bid? And I don't know if that, you know, the answers that you just gave kind of answered that too, or Stephen, if you had more specifics that you wanted to add to your question, or?
Stephen here from NRG. No, I think that does answer my question as well. It sounds to me, if you have your tag placed on time and you do get a RUC award that's short of what you tagged, the tag is going to be adjusted. And then if you bid in the real time, you're going to have to make another tag respective to that bid.
I can confirm that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other questions before we move forward? And thank you very much.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to just confirm that I was understanding, like you said that the tags were due at T40 and then they could be auto adjusted down after that. Would any changes after T55 have EIM settlements consequences, even if it was auto adjusted?
Heidi, I don't know if we want, I believe there was another training that was done on just kind of this unique topic that had a lot of detail. I don't know if you're covering similar detail today or whatnot, but I think that other training that Cynthia did may answer some of these questions, but we may be able to provide a high level answer on this call as well.
Sure. This is Danny with the ISO again. The high-level answer is the ISO in the EIM settles off the base schedules that are submitted at T40. The T55 base schedule from the ISO perspective is advisory. EIM BAAs, I understand, have their own practices that they try to finalize base schedules prior to that, and they may have their own rule sets regarding changes between T55 and T40, but that is at the discretion of EIM BAAs. The ISO settlement is T40 to what occurs in the EIM.
Thanks. That's helpful. Okay. Yep. So it might depend on the BAA. Gotcha.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jenny. And yes, we are not going to get into that kind of specificity in this particular training, but in a few more slides, we're going to open it up for, know that there's a lot of changes and show you where that training is. Just like Heather pointed to, that Cynthia did do a great training. There was one in February, one in March for another initiative. And we'll point you to those because there were quite extensive classes that really, went into a lot of detail. There's a knowledge article and a kind of a Q&A that's out there that has a lot of the different nuanced questions. So we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. So thank you for bringing that up, Heather. We do have that information there, but we will kind of open it up for, for any questions, kind of like an update on where are we at with those initiatives, and then and how what an opportunity would be for additional questions, follow-up questions at a later time to be addressed. So we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. So thank you. All right. So moving forward, one of the things to think about when we're talking about, getting ready for summer, we're looking at making sure that the grid is safe, is that, there are stressors, we're all connected. And so we're going to look at something that happened last year, that there was an emergency event and kind of how we treated the export and mailing transactions. And that kind of leads to some of the changes, the initiatives that we have been making in order to make sure that we keep the lights on throughout the interconnection. Sorry. So some information on some balancing authority area dynamics. All balancing authorities must adhere to the NERC and FERC rules regarding exports, firmness of transmission, and load management. So, the ISO, we're just another BA that's in there. So we need to make sure that we're adhering to any kind of regulation, any kind of requirements to manage this transmission and the load. Energy transfer transactions are prioritized between the BAs, and during these strained grid conditions is when that really can come into play. So it's common practice in the industry to prioritize the different types of transactions during strained grid conditions, when not all the transactions can flow on the system. It is important to understand the difference between low priority exports and wheel exports and wheel transactions that are able to achieve high priority status. So an important distinction between the low priority and high priority are that the low priority, consider the opportunity sales sourced from the ISO's pool of resources that the ISO can support once it's met its own load requirements. Like I mentioned on the last slide, it's like, we have to make sure that we're keeping our balance in our system as well. And so each one of the balancing authorities is doing the same thing. Then there's high priority, and I back up just a little bit. So under the ISO's tariff, low priority exports, those are, like I said, sourced from the ISO's BAA, that the ISO can support only after it meets its own resource adequacy requirements from contracted supply. So the ISO makes market participants aware of what the low priority exports can or cannot be supported during strained grid conditions. The low priority exports, those are not explicitly supported, those that they don't explicitly support ISO capacity that's not already contracted to serve ISO load under the RA arrangement with our California ISO load serving entity. So in other words, the low priority exports, they're seeking opportunities to secure surplus energy via the market. In contrast, the high priority exports must come from resources in the ISO balancing authority area that are not already contracted to provide RA capacity into the ISO. The wheel-through transactions, or wheels, those are the ones that pass through the ISO's transmission system on the way from one balancing authority area to another, in both outside of the ISO. So market participants can designate wheels through the ISO transmission system as high priority if they demonstrate contracted supply wheeling through the ISO at least 45 days in advance of the month. Otherwise, the entities can continue to wheel through the ISO system, but they're considered low priority wheels. Once designated as a high priority, wheels and exports receive treatment equal to the ISO's native load when the market may not be able to accommodate all transactions. But any wheels that have not taken the necessary steps to designate as high priority are considered low priority and subject to not clearing the market in case of congestion prior to the ISO having to consider curtailing any ISO load due to the binding transmission constraint. So last July, there were extreme heat conditions in the desert Southwest, and it led to some concern from the market participants about curtailed exports and wheels. So we just wanted to kind of, show, what happens here. There was record heat in the desert Southwest, unprecedented demand outside of California, and the Western energy supply was stretched thin. And so, it resulted in transmission congestion, challenges for grid operators, because, there is that strain on the system. Energy emergency declarations and actions that were taken in July 2023, they included on July 20th, an energy emergency alert, or EEA1, was declared for the ISO BAA on the evening of July 20th. That resulted in a demand response event. On the last week's class, on the 7th, we went through the energy emergency alerts. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go check out that video. On the 25th, an EEA, or an energy emergency watch, was declared. That's because solar power was diminishing. And then on July 26th, we had an energy emergency watch declared because there were similar conditions. During this time, the ISO honored all high priority exports and wheels, throughout each of the emergency events. Now, due to the tight supply conditions, the real-time market couldn't clear all of the low priority transmission. So here you see the hours that were the low priority economic transactions were not allowed, or were not able to clear the hourly market, and that was for hours 19 to 22. On the 26th, the ISO also had to limit reliance on imports from the WEIM to minimize that risk of the supply just not materializing starting on July 26th. The ISO was still, in spite of that, was able to support a large volume of exports and wheels. So we did have unprecedented high volumes of exports cleared in July, and the exports during the peak hours were double those of summers 2021 and 2022 during similar strained conditions. So during this critical time period, the ISO was also still able to clear up to 1,200 megawatts of wheel-through transactions. So to summarize, from that event, the interconnected nature of the grid, and when you add on the stressed conditions, such as the high demand from the southern desert Southwest at that particular time, that put a strain on the entire system. And we have been talking about in the last couple of classes, again, that everything's connected, you know, so what's happening in one region really does have an impact on everybody else. So coordination and communication with our customers from the ISO standpoint and the stakeholders, that was critical in maintaining reliability. So some of that, you know, that was outreach with the other balancing authority areas, reaching out to customers to reduce load through some of our, you know, Flex Alert programs, et cetera, to try and reduce the demand on the grid to help relieve that stress. And it just kind of pointed out how, you know, when different areas have those problems, those stress conditions, how, you know, we need to still prioritize, but there is increased regional coordination, you know, through the Western Interconnection. And the more that we can do that through optimization of markets, that is going to allow us to kind of leverage those resources from across the West. So there was a report on that, a detailed July market performance report that was put out in September of last year that talked about July 2023. We also have just put out our annual summer loads and resource assessment that helps prepare for summer system operations that will help us maintain grid reliability. So this is available on the Reports and Bulletins webpage of the ISO website. And Radha just put both of these links in both of these links here in the chat. So as a result, you know, of these situations and making sure that we've had increased transparency in the tagging, making more clarity, trying to, you know, there have been some changes here for interchange and e-tagging, you know, and what are some of those considerations? So one of those is the WEIM Resource Efficiency Evaluation Enhancements Phase 2, Track 2. You can follow that on the stakeholder page. Radha's going to put a link to the RSEE2 that stakeholder page, which does include different filings that have taken place, training presentations that have been that we've gone through, the videos, as well as on our Learning Center. And on the right is a list of the kind of the high-level changes that are being discussed through the biweekly release user groups, and shows the changes for master file, ITS, market, ADS, you know, what kind of information is going to be changing. So in the chat, Radha put the link to the stakeholder initiative page for the resource efficiency evaluation enhancements, as well as a link to the where you can find the presentations for the biweekly release users group, so you can see what the timing is. I know that the resource efficiency evaluation was supposed to go in mid-April. It got moved back to the beginning of July. And as Heather mentioned earlier, oops, sorry, went too far forward. There are training resources that go into more of the nuances for each one of these. So there was a resource sufficiency evaluation course, enhancements course, phase 2. They're both on the Learning Center. There was a refresher that was done as well with more clarification. And some adjustments have been made ever since then. And so that's why we're very grateful to have Danny on the call. He's going to be able to kind of, you know, maybe take us through some of those changes. There's also a scheduling priorities and export schedules knowledge article and FAQ that is available. So that has a lot of great information that can take you into some of these detailed questions. So these are both available on the website, on our ISO Learning Center. So I see that we've got a couple questions, and we're gonna open this up now for more of discussion period here. And so I see first that Janice has her hand raised. So Janice, go ahead.
Hi, this is Janice Bacon with Pacificor. And
Hey,
I want to go back to, I don't know which slide it was, but it was the important distinction between low priority and high priority exports. And it just had the low priority and high. And there's one note at the bottom, and it's something that we all know, but low priority exports may not be feasible during strained conditions. My question is, where is the best way, there's the slide, to determine when those strained grid conditions are going to occur or are expected for CAISO? Because not all events are largely regional to be able to impact, multiple BAs, although sometimes they do. But I know for us, the only tool that we really have is the information that's posted on the, I call it CAISO Outlook Today. I think you'll know what I'm talking about, the webpage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that the best way? I mean, how do we determine in advance how likely these low priority exports are to be infeasible?
Great question. And Danny, is that something that you would be able to offer an answer to?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah, today's Outlook would be the best place to understand CAISO's position from a capacity standpoint going into the day-ahead market. I believe we also issue summer readiness alerts, and we'll kind of put out flex alerts days in advance of predicted stress system conditions, and those are also another good indicator of potentially stress system conditions when there might not be either sufficient capacity or transmission to clear LPT exports.
Okay, and how late or how often are the updates on the CAISO Outlook Today updated? And the reason I'm asking in that vein is not accusatory, but I took myself down a rabbit hole one weekend and I sat down and I tried to pull all of the CAISO export today, or the CAISO Today updates, and tried to correlate them with any of CAISO's emergency alert postings to see if there was some information I could have gleaned beforehand that indicated how severe it was. And I have to be honest, there wasn't a clear correlation. So the Outlook Today was not really giving a true explanation of how severe the situation was. And I do understand how quickly situations evolve. Trust me, I know. But I was just curious, like, are those outlooks continually updated throughout the day, or is it done once in the morning?
That's a great question. And I see that.
I would have to, can I take a first stab at that, Heidi?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
I'd have to defer on how often it's updated, but the lack of correlation that you're getting at really is a more complex issue. The CAISO's market is not just clearing with supply that is already contracted to the CAISO, right? It's clearing,
of course,
with demand bids in the CAISO supply, intertie bids made at our borders to both import and export. So to the extent there's a lack of coordination, it could be variability in, or correlation, it could be a lack of import bids regularly showing up. Maybe we get more import bids one day than the next day, or more export offers to export out of our system. So just looking at that CAISO Today's Outlook may not be indicative of the likelihood of an LPT to clear in either the day ahead or the real-time market.
And so Heidi, this is Heather, and I was going to add on that for those who are questioning about where to get the best information, I think this is a great example of using our city process to submit a city ticket. We have a great customer team that either you should be assigned to, and they can help you walk through this, because today's Outlook is a great data point. But as Danny previewed it, it is, it's great for what it is. We have many other reports and data points available on OASIS through our CMRI system, through our balancing operator tools, and other system tools. Again, not everyone will have access to all those tools. They are security permissioned on some of them. But again, just kind of encourage you to submit a city ticket, and our customer team, I think, is happy to help walk you through what are the best sources of information that you as a specific customer would have access to.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. And then I see Jenny's hand. So Jenny Raj, do you want to go ahead and offer some information up too?
Yes, I know we'd like to have information ahead of time, but really the ISO's real-time market closes 75 minutes ahead of the trade hour. We run the hash process, and then those results come out 60 minutes before the hour. And so if you are bidding a low priority export, you really have to just pay attention to your ADS and your hash results at that point. Because as others have mentioned, conditions can change so rapidly, especially during the peak.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully that helped, Janice. All right. And I see Robert had the same question, so great. I'm going to go up here a little bit. I see a couple of questions that had come in. So to put in a scenario, so received a day-ahead RUC award for an LPT export import, but tagged after the 1500 timeline. Does the export import schedule still get the day-ahead priority as long as it's tagged before the half tagging deadline? Sounds like the tag does still get the day-ahead priority as it was awarded RUC in the day-ahead.
Confirmed, Heidi, but we should definitely include that in our Q&A follow-up.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Then from Alan, should we think of high priority exports as exports that have supporting non-RA designations?
Sure, you can look at tariff section 34.12.4, and it lists out 3 categories that we are talking about when we consider LPT exports and the curtailment priority that will be applied to those. So again, tariff section 34.12.4 clearly delineates what LPT exports are, and those that are not LPT exports are the higher priority PT exports.
Great, thank you. And we'll be sure to put that reference to the tariff section in our chat. And when we send out an email at the end of this course, we'll go ahead and put a link and reference that so that you can, people can go check that out. So perfect, thank you. And then what criteria do you need to meet to justify high priority status? Would that be in that same section, Heather, or?
Correct. If you are not an LPT under the criteria described in 34.12.4, we also have BPM sections on this that further explain the tariff section. But if you're not within that, then you are not needing to tag as a GFP, a low priority export. Again, the training materials through the RSE Phase 2 initiative on the LPT export tagging requirements provide a lot of detail. So again, I just encourage folks to review those as well.
Great, thank you. And just as a reminder, where that information is on the Learning Center. So what Heather was just referring to is here on our Learning Center, especially that scheduling priorities and export schedules. Some good information in there. And Caden asked, are there any changes coming into effect for this summer? These rules seem the same as what became effective in July of last year. So I don't know, maybe, Danny, if you could, or Heather, if you guys could talk about maybe what is changing, what's going to be, what do they want to pay attention to for the changes that are going to be coming in this July?
Sure. The tariff changes were approved last year. That is correct, and we've been working on manual action in that time frame. The training materials that we put out on this Phase 2 track to detail the implementation details, but probably as important to this group, the implementation details are embedded in your tagging requirements. and we have implemented a structural validation that requires your LPT tags to have certain indicators in order to be accepted by our tagging system. And so you'll want to make sure you're using those indicators and using them correctly. And it's the implementation that is changing from a manual to automatic.
Great, thank you. And then there's a question, please keep in mind that while HASP closes at T-75, the results are not published until T-45, which does leave entities with a very small window of time to adjust export tags down and seek emergency power or commitment or commit additional generation with a longer startup notification time. So thank you for putting that in there, Julie. And we do, Jenny just put in there that HASP is published at T-60. So you will get results by that point. So thanks, Jenny, for that. Caden asked, when is the automatic implementation effective?
Sure, you should track our working groups for our current, and you had the proper name, Heidi, of the working group, for our current implementation, but we are tracking a July 1st effectiveness for those.
Perfect. All right, thank you. So definitely, as Heather said, you know, get involved in those working groups, because that's where your voices can be heard, where you get information. Because a lot of the time there is, Jenny said earlier, you know, it's like I went here and I got into a rabbit hole, and I'm like, that's what we, you know, where you can go that way for everything. There's so much information, and so getting yourself plugged in is really critical to making sure that you're aware of these changes that are going to be happening as we move forward. And these things become more solidified once the RCE goes live. We will be taking that information and updating our materials as well to capture that. So our training will continue to evolve and grow from there. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much to the subject matter experts and for your questions. Great exchange. So just a reminder, we kind of mentioned that with the emergency response, how does it work? Again, we've got flex alerts that will go out, and EEAs are energy alert, or sorry, energy emergency alerts. Those will go out if they are affecting the whole system. We also have transmission emergencies. They might affect just a particular location based on transmission lines and flows and equipment. It is possible to have one or more or both alerts at the same time. Like we keep saying, you know, it's like everything is interconnected, so there are effects that that you can feel. That, you know, something happens in one area of a state, you can feel it in another. So there are operational considerations that are going on during any kind of stress or emergency conditions. We're always looking at maintaining reserves for the loss of the biggest unit. So that's just an ongoing, always making sure that we have sufficient capacity. It's the right thing to do to make sure we have the system safe, but it's also you know, regulatory requirement. You know, we're making sure that we've got available generating capacity, that we have reserves, sufficient reserves for up and down, and forecast changes that are there. So those are considerations that we're looking at. Customer load, that's also a consideration during these emergency situations. Notifications are going to be set as appropriate based on the system conditions. So here you see the level. We talked about it in last week's class, like I mentioned before. So if you wanted to go into a little bit more about what each one of these are when they are triggered, I encourage you to go check out that class. But if we are short on emergency, affects the whole system. Again, the transmission emergency only affects the you know, the basic location or the particular location based on the lines, flows, and equipment. like I mentioned before, it's possible to have one or both at the same time. But we want to avoid getting into the orange. So we have a lot of messages that are coming out beforehand. You can sign up to receive these. So Janice, you were talking about where would I find this information? How quickly can I get it? If you're not already enrolled to receive these messages, it might be something that you want to go ahead and sign up to receive. So you're getting more on-time notifications. Everybody can sign up for Flex Alerts, you know, as just basic consumers can sign that up. So it's like, hey, I need to reduce my energy consumption. You know, so they're mentioned before, you know, the EEA watches, they ended up coming into play last July. And so that's in that level where we want, you know, so that's an example. But all of this takes a lot of coordination for both voluntary and mandatory load interruption programs. Like I said, we've got the EEA system, we've got Flex Alerts, we have messaging that goes out through Twitter, through X, or I guess it's X now, through different social media. There are a lot of different places where we're putting out that information to keep people posted. If you would like to sign up for to receive the notifications, you can submit a city ticket or if you need to be added to the EA notification distribution list. And there is a note, I just got it this morning, that we're actually sorry, I just saw a quick note, but there is going to be a new process that our customer, our client representative group is working on, and actually mentioned the new ISO website. We are going to be rolling out a new ISO website. There is a training a little after this one, actually. So if you are interested in learning how our new website is going to look, I encourage you to check out that training. But there is a new website, and there's going to be a new process for signing up that's going to be a little more a quicker process for being able to get these notifications. So stay tuned on that, but you do want to subscribe for the notifications, because that's going to get you the information you need more quickly. There are some, sorry, my computer is being finicky today. So there are some procedures around energy alerts, the EAs. So there's communication protocols. There are NERC standards, EOP 11 for emergency operations. There are some RC West procedures and ISO procedures, all about system emergency and emergency assistance and notifications. So from an EEA standpoint, if you're interested in knowing what those procedures are, here's some references. So to wrap up here, you know, throughout this whole series, and you know, and with your e-tagging, with the interconnections, you know, looking at all the information, as much advanced collaboration, coordination, and is, you know, to prepare for summer conditions is necessary, but also just to make sure that we're coordinating to make sure that the system continues to be safe, runs smoothly, and reliably. So planning is key. Communication is key. Communication could be in form of reaching out to your client rep. It could be in the form of making sure that all of your information is detailed correctly in your e-tags. So that information, your bids, your base schedules, that's communication into the market to know what's available, outages, et cetera. So that communication is key, and a lot of that communication is in the form of data and inputs. And readiness, you know, attending trainings, checking out the trainings that we referred you to that have a lot more detail and depth than what we're covering today for e-tagging is going to be key. Sharing this information with those that are new to the industry, pointing them out about the processes, where to go to find information, that's also key. This is, again, the third class where we talked about the wheel through concepts, export priorities, and tagging expectations, and a little bit about the Flex Alert EEAs. We've got one last class in the series that is going to be held next Wednesday, and we're going to be discussing for WEIM resources, but it is still a public class. You can register for it. It's the WEIM Resource Performance Expectations class on May 22nd. We'll talk about assistance energy transfer, as well as demand response process for WEIM. You can register, there's a link there, and if you have any questions about the training, feel free to contact our team at customerreadiness@caiso.com. And again, please share with your staff. The more that we can get education down into the hands of especially the end users, the decision makers, if we get all on the same page, which is what we're trying to do with these training series by setting some foundational information that we can grow from, is going to be key. We've advertised this in the other classes, but again, we do have a new reference guide to help resource owner operators find important information. Training classes, knowledge articles, policies and procedures, bringing on new resources into your system. So this is a tool. It will continue to grow as we add more information. And I don't believe we have the FAQ to interchange, but that's one that we can definitely add in here. So this will be a living resource to check back on and see, if you can find different pieces of information to kind of help guide you in your daily operations. Stay informed on our www.caiso.com. We've got policy initiatives page. You can go and subscribe to notifications. Mentioned earlier, Janice, we've got the Today's Outlook, which does provide a lot of good information. So you can stay informed that way. We also have our stakeholder engagement and customer experience team, and we work collaboratively. We're 4 different teams within the same division, consisting of stakeholder affairs, customer readiness, stakeholder experience, and customer experience. So our team's helping facilitate a lot of the stakeholder meetings to inform customers. We do a lot of outreach. So if you are on those notifications, a lot of that outreach will be helped to be driven by our customer experience and stakeholder experience teams, our account managers. We also help with onboarding, with training and education, as well as customer support. So we're working on continuing to evolve our outreach to customers so that you are as informed as possible for making the right decisions and understanding operations. I see Robert Fisher, you've got your hand up. So you have a question, go ahead.
Thanks, Heidi. I have a question about the cyber bidding specifically. In real time, for high priority wheels, cyber allows one side to be a high priority bid and the other side to be a low priority bid. I wanted to understand what is the intent of allowing this type of bidding, or is this just something that, kind of wasn't thought through and possibly might need to be reviewed?
Do we still have Danny or Heather that can maybe respond to that?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll need a repeat of the question. Sorry about that.
No problem. So in cyber, cyber allows the ability to put in one side as a high priority bid and the other side as a low priority bid. And to me, this is, and I've reviewed the BPM and gone through the tariff, and I haven't seen anything in regards to this being a specific type of status or how this would work out in regards to the penalty pricing. So my question is, what is the intent of allowing cyber to allow this type of bid? Or is this just something that cyber allows that maybe should be reviewed and possibly have some type of error associated with it.
I mean, we can definitely review it, but and I'll admit I'm not super familiar with this functionality, but I'm going to give you an answer, and if it's not the right, we again put it in the chat so we can make sure we get an official Q&A for you. But I believe the answer is you need 2 tags. You'll need a tag for the day ahead piece of the bid, an eventual award, and you would need a separate tag with a separate priority for the real-time piece of the bid.
My question's more in regards to how why cyber allows it and how the market treats it. The tagging aspect, I'm not too concerned about.
So your question is why does cyber allow you to submit a bid that has both a high priority component and the low priority component?
Correct.
Okay, I don't have the answer to that, but we can get you an answer to that. And then I'm going to say, in getting you that answer will be part of, the team evaluating how and, how CAISO feels about that suggestion and where one would go to promote changes for that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. And if you want to put it in the chat, you can, Robert, but I also wrote it down so that we'll add that to the Q&A follow-up. So
thank you very much, Heidi.
Yeah, but everybody will get that as well, because I'm sure now everybody's like, okay, that is curious. So, all right, perfect. Thank you. All right. So that's it for our training today. Oops. I think I went too far here. So thank you very much for your participation. I'll look one more time. Are there any other questions? I do see that Dave did have one question. Can the ISO make curtailments to LPTs during flex alerts and EEA watches, or only when an EEA is declared?
Sure. The ISO under 34124 retains sole discretion to take action to curtail at any time that it's needed. When in an EEA3, there are some specified procedures in 34124, but it's not that curtailment is not limited to EEA3 or otherwise conditions. If operators determine it's needed to be used to maintain reliability otherwise.
Great. Thank you very much. And then, Stephen, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I had a question regarding the priority exports and eligibility for those. I was looking in the tariff, and I guess where you all had previously referred, it wasn't very descriptive on what the actual eligibility for the high priority exports are. I don't know if there's another location where it goes into greater detail or detail about how to determine or submit for eligibility as a high priority resource.
It doesn't, is the short answer. If you submit a city ticket, our customer service team can help walk you through kind of the details of the high priority exports. You are usually a high priority export if you're not a low priority export. You are often a high priority export. But if you submit a ticket, we can walk you through the details in the tariff structure for the higher priority exports.
Okay, and where can I submit that ticket?
Heidi, do you want to cover how folks submit to our city ticket system? And I guess if you're not a customer, everything Heidi says may not be applicable, so email customerreadiness@kaiso.com. But Heidi, go ahead. You want to give the city ticket how-to?
Yeah, and we can pull up, if you have access to our market participant portal, City is one of our applications that is available. You need to have certificate access to be able to get to it. and then you could submit your inquiries there. If you don't have access to that, then you can go to our ISO website. I think it's under or you can hit contact us on the ISO website, and that will allow you to put in your question. That will go into the system, and then our client representatives can route that, either answer it themselves or they can get you to the proper subject matter expert to be able to respond. So again, Citi is either through our market participant portal, which is available on our website as a link, or through the contact us tab.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just wasn't familiar with Citi. I see it
Okay.
now. Guess it's always been there.
Yeah, and it's a really good tool. We're trying to use it more and more because, usually if you have a question, probably somebody else has that question, and, if we start to look for trends and say, oh, we've got 5 people who have answered this question, is this something that would be good for a training opportunity? Is this something that would be good for a knowledge article? It's obviously, it's not just, a one-off. We need to really capture that. So putting information in your questions in through Citi can really help us to, put that together, analyze it, and make sure that we're getting the right responses out to customers. And maybe it just requires us to be a little more clear on something. So yeah, it's a good tool to use. So that is there. Did have one last question here. It says, can a real-time low priority export or import be tagged for multiple hours? Oops, sorry, another question came in here. It popped out. Hold on a second. Can a real-time low priority export or import be tagged for multiple hours, or does it have to be tagged each hour after real-time RUC is received?
Again, check the most recent training materials, which go into great detail on this, but the high level is you may pre-submit your tags under the current validation structure, but that will require some updates. You may also wait until after the market closes and then submit your tags. That is definitely allowed, but we do have a pathway for you to pre-submit, review those training materials, and it details that.
Perfect, thank you. And if you're looking at the chat, Cynthia Hinman, thank you very much. She put in a link for more information on scheduling priorities. She put a link to that scheduling priorities and export schedules overview. So we had put in a link to the ISO, the Learning Center, where it's on there, but she put the direct link in there. So thank you very much, Cindy. Rada also added a link that's on our Learning Center. And the page has, she said the page has 2 presentations on the transmission service and market scheduling priorities daily and monthly process to register for high priority status. So thanks for adding that. I did have a question a little bit earlier as far as where can I find information on that presentation for the EEAs where we covered in a little more depth. That was from last week's resource operations expectations course, resource performance expectations course that is on the Learning Center. So there's a link to the Learning Center that Rada just put in there. And if you look under new modules, it's right up there, either at the top or maybe it's been replaced by the batteries course from yesterday. But the last part of that class is where we discussed that. So thanks for that question. Oh, and Kyle, I missed that before. If you want to sign up for emergency subscriptions, if you look into the chat, Kyle Clayton, one of our client reps, said you can sign up, and there's a link for emergency subscriptions. So thank you very much for that. Where and how can you register for training for the new ISO website? Rada put a note in there that the training sessions are going to be taking place on May 23rd and 29th. Sorry, I misspoke that it would be today, but May 23rd, May 29th. It's going to be the same class, just duplicate sessions. They are on the ISO calendar on the ISO website. So if you click on that and add that to your calendar, it's going to have the link to the class information. So you don't have to register for that class. All right. any final questions before we close for today? All right. Well, thank you very much. I really want to thank our subject matter experts that were on the call. I know Jenny had to leave, and also Danny, but Heather, thank you so much for being there to provide the guidance. You know, I know that things have been changing. There's a lot of detail out there. So thank you very much for fielding that information, and thanks to all of you for asking the questions. So we're trying to balance foundational information with all of the changes. This will continue to evolve into deeper information, but really appreciate your engagement. We do have a survey that will be coming out. All the links that were shared will again be included in the follow-up email that we send to you with the evaluation link. Plus, we will plus we're going to take all the questions, put that into a comprehensive guide. So thanks for that. If you continue to have further questions about this training that you'd like us to follow up on, please send those to customerreadiness@caiso.com, and we will be sure to respond. If not, again, the city ticket is a great place to put in information because we've got a great team that's taking care of that and working with others in our company because everybody has a little piece of the puzzle. So thank you all so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. For those of you that will be on next week's class, we look forward to seeing you then. And other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your week, great weekend, and we will be talking to you soon. Thank you. And thanks to Rada for being a great producer. Have a great day all.